Part 2. The True Nature of Alcoholism. Understanding the true nature of alcoholism and exposing the unconscious forces that sustain it is the key to freedom. The unconscious, as the term suggests, is that which lies beyond our conscious awareness. Mental strategies that are so ingrained that they run independent of our conscious control. Mastering these forces is liberating. But how can we disarm an adversary we cannot see? The following topics are designed to bring your unconscious programming into the light of consciousness, thereby raising your awareness of the underlying psychological mechanisms that perpetuate your desire to escape. What causes alcoholism? Chapter 1. Alcoholism, the true nature of the phenomenon. Chapter 2. The underlying mechanics of addiction. Chapter 3. Crossing the invisible line. Chapter 4. The impact of unconscious programming. Chapter 5. The power of the labels we attach to ourselves. Chapter 6. A simple structure of the mind. Chapter 7. Chapter 1. What causes alcoholism? The range of theories proposed to explain why certain people develop problems with alcohol is extensive. Although there is some evidence to support certain facets of these ideas, their impact is negligible. There is absolutely no evidence to suggest a predeterminant for alcoholism. By dispelling the myths surrounding alcoholism, this chapter will free you of all negative indoctrination. To ascertain the underlying beliefs and influences that underpin destructive drinking is important. Far too often, people subscribe to negative beliefs such as, "I've got an addictive personality," or "I suffer from the illness of alcoholism," without realizing the dire consequences. Beliefs are powerful. They shape our lives. By identifying with these beliefs, you are inadvertently ushering yourself into a mindset of powerlessness. I am ill or diseased, therefore I have no choice but to drink. It's an affliction. What rubbish! Internalizing negative ideas can and often does lead to self-fulfilling prophecy. Believe it, and you'll achieve it. Your mind will always attempt to actualize what you continually impress upon it. So, stop convincing yourself that you're diseased, ill, or have an addictive personality, and start convincing yourself that you're a limitless bundle of potential, capable of attaining anything you desire. Dispelling the myths. Internal factors. The ideas examined here relate to the belief that some people develop problematic drinking as a result of some intrinsic abnormality, something that distinguishes them from ordinary people. Myth. Alcoholism is a psychiatric illness or disease. Over the past 20 years, the view that alcoholism is a disease or illness has been discredited. Mounting evidence suggests that all the fundamental tenets are incorrect. I appeal to the individuals and organizations who insist on supporting this view to think again. What criteria is your view based on? What purpose does it serve? From personal experience, I am convinced that defining alcoholism as a disease or illness serves only to exacerbate the problem and place unnecessary mental obstacles in the way of sobriety. To define alcoholism in terms of a disease or illness is both ludicrous and damaging. Both terms denote something over which we have very little control, something that is inflicted upon us. If alcoholism is a disease or illness, then the tens of thousands of people who have resolved their destructive drinking patterns must have had a disclaimer written into their anatomy. Something along the lines of, If this person gets fed up with the illness of alcoholism, then they can simply choose not to have it anymore. Why else would they suddenly become exempt? They didn't undergo surgery or take a course of medication. They simply decided to resume control of their lives and dismiss all the negative doctrine that's irresponsibly bandied about. For years, I too claimed to have a disease called alcoholism. A terminal disease, of course. What an ingenious way to relinquish all responsibility and wallow in self-pity for the rest of my life. Wasn't I clever? Hadn't I pulled the wool over everybody's eyes? So clever, in fact, I denied myself of an excellent quality of life. A life filled with adventure and infinite possibilities. Deceiving others simply denies you an excellent quality of life. Playing your mind with ideas of illness or disease simply reinforces the unconscious strategies that are destroying you. Your words act as bars that keep you imprisoned in a dungeon of denial. These theories are simply excuses masquerading as reasons. If you want to continue drinking, then do so. But don't delude yourself into believing that you are compelled to. It is a choice. After changing my perspective and rejecting the illness and disease theories, I came to accept alcoholism as simply a polluted mind. A mind infected with fear, guilt, futility, and pain. Subsequently, I set about reprogramming the negative mental patterns that kept me bound. And quite magically, my life transformed beyond all recognition. I guarantee yours will too if you follow the guidelines laid out in the rest of this book. Fact: you do not have an illness or disease called alcoholism. Fact: you are not abnormal. Myth: alcoholic personality predisposes a person to drink. Here it is supposed that there is a type of personality which predisposes some people to develop a problem. Although in-depth research has been conducted over a wide spectrum of areas, there is no evidence or consistent results to prove a pre-alcoholic personality. Claiming to have an alcoholic or addictive personality is simply another excuse to defend a habit that denies you of a wonderful life. Give it up. Fact: you do not have an alcoholic personality. There is no such thing. Myth: alcoholism is a physical allergy. This view suggests that some people have an allergic reaction to alcohol. It suggests that alcoholics are normal until they consume alcohol. Once they do, they trigger an allergic reaction which ignites a craving to drink more and more. Although this theory is at the heart of the disease model of alcoholism, there is not one shred of evidence to back it up. Granted, once a person with an alcoholic habit takes a drink, they do tend to crave more and more alcohol. But this is not the result of a physical abnormality. It is a symptom of an overwhelming need to escape, a malfunction of the mind, not the body. Fact: you do not have a physical allergy to alcohol. You have an overwhelming desire to escape life. Factors within the social context. The ideas presented in this section advocate the belief that people develop alcoholism as a result of learned behavior or peer pressure. Modeling parents. There is some evidence to suggest that dysfunctional drinking can be handed down from generation to generation. Approximately 40% of problem drinkers report having one or both parents who drink abnormally. Parental behavior is the single biggest influence on the long-term development of children. Parental attitudes and behavior create values to which children adhere. Depending upon the degree of identification with the parental drinker, a child is more likely to follow in their footsteps. Yet, with alcoholism, there are innumerable exceptions to this rule. In fact, statistics show that most people with drinking problems do not have parents who abuse alcohol, and many people without a problem have parents who drink destructively. Therefore, problematic drinking is not predetermined by having parents with an alcohol problem. Fact: we don't have to accept what we have inherited. Fact: any learned behavior can be easily unlearned. Fact: most people with drinking problems do not have parents who drink abusively, and many children of such parents do not develop drinking problems. Fact: dysfunctional drinking is not handed down from generation to generation. It is a choice made by the individual concerned. Genetic vulnerability. Research in this area is fraught with problems and ambiguity. Although there is some evidence to suggest a possible genetic influence, the link can only be applied to a small percentage of problem drinkers. The research implies an increased risk of people developing a problem, but it certainly does not imply a predisposition to drink abusively. I have personally facilitated the transformation of many people who have come from parents and grandparents who drank heavily. Without exception, they were able to recover in exactly the same manner as people who didn't have the so-called genetic inheritance. So, what's the big deal? We can argue indefinitely as to the influence of genetic inheritance, but surely that would mean we were living in the problem. The Alchemist's objective is to live in the answer, and the fact remains that genetic inheritance does not affect the capability of a person to radically transform their life. Fact: genetic inheritance does not predetermine alcoholism. Fact: genetic inheritance does not impede radical transformation. Unstable home environment. There is increasing evidence to support that an unstable home environment contributes to the likelihood of alcoholism. Parental conflict, parental absence, or early parental loss resulting from marital breakup can be major catalysts. Once again, however, there are innumerable cases that do not lend themselves to this theory. Therefore, an unstable home environment is not a predeterminant of alcoholism. Even in the cases where alcoholism does transpire as a result of people escaping negative childhood experience, it does not preclude them from radically transforming their lives. Remember my friend Steve? Left on a doorstep at birth, ridiculed at school, sexually abused by his foster father. He now lives a life beyond his wildest dreams. If he can radically transform his life, then so can you. Fact: an unstable home environment does not predetermine alcoholism. Fact: people who have experienced unstable home environments often excel on our 12-step philosophy for optimal living. Peer pressure. Peer pressure has a very strong influence on a person's development, especially during adolescence. People often model themselves on their peers, developing their attitudes and mimicking their behavior. Alcohol has a wide range of socially ascribed meanings: maturity, masculinity, sexual desirability, and strength, all of which can be alluring to a young person desiring to be accepted by his peers. However, in reality, abusive alcohol consumption leads to vomiting, diarrhea, impotence, accelerated aging, and brain deficiencies. Alluring? I think not. Get real, kids. Excessive use of alcohol will see you ostracized by your peers. Who wants to associate with an unpredictable menace, reeking of stale ale, urine, and feces? Fact: Peer pressure does not predetermine alcoholism. Fact: abusive alcohol consumption leads to diarrhea, vomiting, and impotence, not maturity, masculinity, sexual desirability, and strength. National and cultural conditions. So far, our attempts to understand the origins of problematic drinking have been based on alleged predispositions or external influences. The ideas in this section change the focus, suggesting that people succumb to alcoholism due to the trials and tribulations of society as a whole. Availability and portrayed image. This view suggests that the problem is simply the availability of the substance. It states that we are all at risk of developing alcohol-related problems simply by being exposed to alluring advertisements. Indeed, there exists some evidence to support this view. The number and range of alcohol-related problems within any given country appears to be directly proportional to the amount of alcohol consumed by its population. Holders of this view argue for reducing the positive profile of alcohol within our society. However, if the positive profile of alcohol consumption was a predeterminant for alcoholism, then most of the population would succumb. We are all exposed to advertisements for alcohol, yet most people do not develop problems as a result. Fact: alcoholism is not predetermined by exposure to advertisements that portray alcohol in a positive light. Societal problems. This final view suggests that social problems give rise to abusive drinking. Society is viewed as competitive, hostile, and unfair. Hence, it is argued that people drink excessively to escape their social conditions. They seek escape from things such as violence, unemployment, deprivation, and poverty. This proposal is perhaps the closest to the truth, in that it identifies an inability or refusal to meet life's challenges as the root cause of alcoholism. Escapism is undoubtedly the underlying cause of all abusive drinking, but often it is a person's perception of life, not life itself, that poses the problem. Fact: people do turn to alcohol to escape life's challenges, but often these problems are distorted interpretations of the mind. Alcohol doesn't provide a means of escape from such mental phenomena. It exacerbates it. If you are unhappy with your life, there are a myriad of other choices available to you. Conclusion: although these theories are useful in ascertaining certain factors that contribute to heavy drinking, none of them identify and address the root cause of alcoholism. They are all riddled with inconsistencies, even in the cases where alcoholism has been linked to such causes. The process of transformation remains exactly the same. By adhering to these ideas, you place the locus of control outside of yourself and become disempowered. In truth, they have very little credence. You can dispel alcoholism anytime you choose. These theories constitute excuses, not reasons. Live in the answer, not the problem.